Today, people talk considerably faster than in the 50s, and in the last 20 years, we have increased the speed at which we walk by up to 10%. Everything is going faster, and we keep accelerating. The number of traffic accidents caused by being distracted looking at the mobile phone has skyrocketed in recent years. Our work, whatever it is interrupted on average every 3 minutes. Our day-to-day is an endless succession of distractions that prevents us from focusing on anything. We spend almost 4 hours a day completely absorbed in our mobile phone, sometimes much more. Every day we touch these devices an average of 2,617 times. It's very common to see groups of 6 or 7 teenagers walking together on the street, but all looking at their mobile phone. In 2013, we focused on a trending topic for roughly 17.5 hours, on average. In 2016, only 11.9 hours. Nowadays, much less. Each time, population-wise, we pay attention to something for less time. What is the cause of this? Is it just social media? Are we becoming more stupid? Are we doing something wrong? The main cause is the flood of information, which continues to grow at an unstoppable pace. Your attention span, like your money, is limited. You can't process all the information you want or pay attention to everything at the same time. That's why the time we dedicate to each piece of content is progressively less. Too much to see. Is it worrying? Yes, it definitely is. We are losing the ability to delve deep, reflect, and dissect a specific topic in favor of superficial exposure to ever more content. Breadth and depth in this case compete with each other. When was the last time you delved into a topic until you understood it deeply? The worrying thing is that solving complex individual and collective problems requires this kind of reflection and depth. The invention of the internet or the arrival of man on the moon were the result of many minds delving into complex problems at the same time. Therefore, problem number 1, information overload, is deteriorating your attention span. That's why it's increasingly difficult for you to focus on something for more than a few minutes. But this is not the worst part. Let's move on to observe your behavior and mine. You've probably noticed you can't stop unconsciously reaching into your pocket looking for your mobile phone. Not because there's something vital or urgent to see. Simply because you've been conditioned to look at it. Just like Skinner's pigeon, the behavioral psychologist who discovered operant conditioning. What did Skinner discover? Well, he basically realized that we can generate a behavior in a living being by intelligently using positive reinforcement. In this case, you are conditioned, as I am and as most of the population is, to look at your mobile phone because it contains multiple positive reinforcements. Likes, comments, entertainment, and digital social validation. Therefore, your attention weakens, and your behavior is conditioned to continually distract in favor of possible digital reinforcements. What's going on here? Is all this normal? Shouldn't we question it? Should we keep acting as if nothing is happening? Is it okay that we are more interested in looking at our phones than looking at our children or our friends? Your decreasing ability to pay attention is not a coincidence. The fact that you can't finish a 200-page book when you used to devour them is no coincidence. The fact that you struggle to actively listen in a conversation with someone who you ostensibly care about is no coincidence. Your dwindling interest in previously captivating subjects is not coincidental. It's no coincidence that you watch a front-row concert that you've paid a fortune for through your mobile phone recording app. And it's no coincidence that our levels of anxiety and feelings of emptiness continue to grow without any apparent reason. We are throwing our lives away, but we are not the only ones to blame for it. Today's video is one of the most important out of the over 1,500 that we have recorded to date. It's based on the work of Johann Hari, author of the book Stolen Focus, Why You Can't Pay Attention, or The Value of Attention in Spanish. As the title suggests, the book explains the reasons why you can't concentrate. And no, it's not just about your self-control and discipline. You might ask, is attention so important as to write a book on this subject? Well, I can tell you that everything good in this life is on the other side of concentration. No progress in life is possible without concentration. Without attention, without focus. To grow as a person, you need to concentrate. To grow professionally, you need to concentrate. To solve problems, you need attention. To be creative, you need concentration. To understand the world, you need to reflect deeply on it. This applies to comprehending yourself and others. Without attention, without conscious concentration, we become automatons at the mercy of unconscious impulses and habits. As Hari develops in his book that I highly recommend you read, the main factors that are killing our attention are the following. First, you're constantly altering focus and shifting information. When you are continuously putting your attention on rapidly changing and fleeting things like a Twitter thread or TikTok videos, your attentional capacity starts to reconfigure. The way you pay attention changes little by little, its shapes. The constant shifting focus from one item, tweet, post, or video to another in mere seconds has an energetic toll on the brain. Your brain, the organ that uses the most energy per kilogram of weight in your body, uses a lot of resources to switch from one object of attention to another. First lesson, switching tasks costs energy. That's why when you're constantly getting distracted while studying, you're less efficient at studying. The simple fact of having your phone nearby with notifications turned on makes you a worse student, even if you don't check them when they sound. Why? After each distraction, refocusing is a task that demands a lot of energy and focus. And remember the common narrative throughout the video, your focus is limited. The more you spend, the less you have left, like your money. The same goes for the leakage of information. Deciding what to pay attention to from an endless array of things is not free. It consumes energy. Consider you must filter out massive volumes of stimuli. Every time you spend a while on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, you're making an unconscious filtering effort, selecting what you want to see and omitting what you don't. 15,000 years ago, you had to filter out a few stimuli to focus, for example, on a prey. Nowadays, you must continuously filter tens of thousands of inputs like advertisements, spam, irrelevant content, emails, etc. Think about how you function on a daily basis. You're continuously and rapidly switching from one tweet to another, from one video to another, from one controversy to another. Have you noticed that controversies are lasting less and less time? They are talked about for 1 or 2 days and quickly forgotten. Why? Because we are daily overwhelmed by new controversies and new information that quickly replaces the previous one. We can't pay attention to everything at once. Your attention is limited, it has a limit. Then we wonder why we can't concentrate and why we're exhausted all day. The mobile phone drains energy and focus. The lie of multitasking. Humans can't multitask. Listen to me well, you can't do two things at the same time. This concept, multitasking, was originated to be applied to computers, not humans. What's your action when you believe you're multitasking? You're switching from one thing to another at breakneck speed. That is, you're juggling. These attentional juggling acts, when sustained for a sufficient amount of time, fry your ability to pay attention. If you want to be effective at doing anything, it's necessary that you focus only on that thing. Otherwise, you won't do well at either one. And yes, I know that multitasking is not an option for many and that you have to watch that the child doesn't eat the Play-Doh while you're watching the kitchen fire while you're taking down the laundry. Do it if you have to, but understand how this is draining your energy and attention span. What you can avoid or try to avoid is having your head constantly in the phone, in the notifications, in the direct messages, wondering if they have commented on you, in the empty entertainment of TikTok while you try to continue with your day-to-day, with your life. Speaking of empty entertainment is killing our flow states. What was that about the flow state? Well, it's that wonderful feeling of absolute concentration, where you lose track of time, lose your sense of self, and completely merge with whatever you're doing. You felt it as a child when you played and 4 hours passed without you realizing it, and maybe also while writing, reading, doing sports, or getting involved in something you like, but at the same time requires some cognitive or physical effort on your part. In a state of flow, the task seems to complete itself. It's a very pleasant feeling. You're very effective, but at the same time, you enjoy what you're doing a lot. And entering this state of flow, described by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, is increasingly difficult in our current environment and cultures. Why, you may wonder? Distraction is the prime adversary of this personal experience. And we live in an environment where we are continually distracted by the mobile phone, by email, and by our peers who take for granted that distracting and being distracted is something inherent to our present, something that poses no problem and that doesn't even need to be questioned. If it's been a while since you felt this state of flow but you remember having done it in the past, this is another symptom that something is happening and we need to change as soon as possible. Another problem, we are physically and mentally exhausted. Bad habits have a direct relationship with the loss of the ability to pay attention. As I mentioned, focusing demands significant energy. It's the mental equivalent of lifting weights. Now think about the effect on your health that the overconsumption of addictive digital technologies has. Indeed, they're addictive. It's factual, not subjective. How is staying up looking at your phone until you drop impacting your night's rest? How is it affecting your relationships and your ability to socialize? Could you spend the 4 hours you spend looking at your phone screen on self-care training, planning your shopping, or spending time with your family? Ask yourself these questions personally. Why not? Even though you try to convince yourself that watching videos of girls dancing, viral memes, adult content, or angrily commenting on posts from people you don't even know. Well, even if you convince yourself that this is a way to relax, a kind of catharsis after a bad day, it's not. It's a way to fry your attention, just like constantly checking instant messaging apps like WhatsApp. When did we normalize being available to everyone at all hours, 7 days a week? Before this privilege, the access to your time and attention was only held by your family and a few friends. You're checking WhatsApp at 11 p.m. in case there's something urgent to resolve. Isn't it clear that these behaviors, your rising anxiety, declining self-care, and health are connected? Isn't this concerning? Good leisure, true leisure, is revolutionary and improves your health. Walking, hanging out with friends, experiencing nature, conversing, and exercising. But being glued to screens is not leisure and is anything but revolutionary, as it benefits companies whose market value exceeds the gross domestic product of many entire countries. Conclusion: your bad habits worsen your attention span, and continuous distraction through superficial supernormal stimuli worsen your bad habits. Next point, a very important one: we are losing the ability to read. Reading a physical book and reading a digital newspaper are two radically different things. When we read in digital format, we read differently. We scan more than we read, looking for those pieces of information that interest us, clicking here and there on whatever catches our attention. We rarely read a digital article completely from beginning to end, and we have a lot of evidence of this. A pop-up jumps out and we click on it. We click on an ad for a clothing item we like. We have WhatsApp web open and someone just wrote to us and we see what they have said. You just received an email. You check it. There is no concentration in digital reading. Reading a book, however, forces you into a more linear reading. It's a more linear process. One sentence after another, one paragraph after another. And it doesn't invite you to jump from chapter to chapter, but to do one thing only. Read the damn book. Have you observed your reading becoming increasingly difficult? Do you find that your eyes have trouble focusing on the words for long enough? Or that you don't understand what you're reading because you want to read at a faster speed than you can comprehend the content? You're not alone, it's not solely your fault, and this is a common feeling. We've become accustomed to a superficial, very brief, and trivial reading. We've even spoiled our eye movement to a digital environment. We're not attracted now to a classic work or a 300-page book that will take you weeks to read. You're drawn to a Twitter controversy thread or watching 100 TikToks at once. This is another sign of our attention loss. And one way to combat it is to return to analog reading, reading books whose pages you can touch, and do so without distractions in intervals of at least 20 or 30 minutes of sustained concentration. Moving on, next point. Algorithms create the habit of hating your fellow men and keeping you hyper alert. When you understand how social networks work, you also understand that they don't exactly make you a better person unless you're smarter than them. The goal of big tech companies is just one: to have you spend as much time as possible looking at the screen. The more screen time, the more revenue for them. It's that simple and yet that perverse. Of course, the engineers who design these technologies we use daily know perfectly well certain vulnerabilities in the human psyche. One of those vulnerabilities is that, for example, we have a negativity bias. What does this mean? Well, content with a negative emotional charge is viewed for longer and shared much more. You've observed it in yourself when a road accident happens. You're more drawn to the crash scene out of a grim curiosity than to the simultaneously occurring beautiful sunset. This doesn't label you as a bad person. It's simply human nature, and everyone experiences it. Another widely exploited weakness is our inherent nosiness. We're interested in people's issues and conflicts, hence our controversial videos. Any solutions? Indeed, a rigorous BIF quote on personal disputes. I want to apologize. I feel remorseful, sad and hollow. Sometimes ridiculous things go viral so easily. Also, something that generates a lot of screen time is hate speech, the US versus them. Something inherent to politics, but that expands to many other areas, even to nutrition. The result of all this, well, as they are the most viral and shared contents, in addition to exploiting your psychological vulnerabilities, you will end up consuming a large amount of content based on senseless fights between two people you don't know, hate speech against political or ideological adversaries, alarmist and sensationalist messages in the field of nutrition, lifestyle, pollution, or whatever. And this creates the habit of hating first and greatly polarizes the population. It creates the habit of being constantly alert, of thinking that the world is a hostile and dangerous place, full of bad people looking for confrontation. The bad is exaggerated on social media and we go into fight or flight mode. We only pay attention to social problems but not to the solutions. Little by little, we adopt a victim role and we find more and more reasons to hate the other. It's not about living oblivious to social problems or the real dangers that exist, obviously, but social networks are an amplifier of fear, danger, hatred. Whoever wants to understand that understands. We move to the last point. The technology you use controls you, not the other way around. Look, I'm going to tell you a truth. Our ability to concentrate is inversely proportional to our screen time, which was the most important metric for any social application. And we have a lot of evidence of this, also a high level of evidence. But the problem is deeper and more perverse than you think. As previously noted, most large tech firms profit by maximizing your screen time. For two reasons. One is very simple, the other not so much. If you look at the screen more, you'll see more advertising and companies pay tech companies to advertise on them. It's that simple. The second reason, more perverse. The more you look and interact with the interface of social networks, the more ability they have to create an individual profile of your tastes, your preferences, your political tendencies, your shopping habits, your basic needs, your fears, or your insecurities. These companies know more about you than you do, which is periodically manifested when you are surprised because yesterday you were talking with a friend about needing to buy a fryer, and today they show it to you in advertising. It's the data business, an incredibly lucrative business. The individual profile generated by Meta, or by any of the companies I mentioned, for example, is so accurate that it can predict what you are going to want to buy. Have you ever wondered why Google Maps is a free application so powerful and useful that it also works because Alexa is so cheap, or why you can translate for free with the translator? Or why you have available the Google Lens, such a powerful tool without paying a dime, is because the business is not in you. Paying to use these applications, it's in the information it generates about you with the daily use of these free applications. The business is really about knowing more about you, and the hook is that they are free. And if they are free, you are going to use them. Of course, if you use them, then they will know more about you. Think about it another way. Would you pay €1 a month to use Google Maps? I would, and probably you would too, because it is a very useful application. Imagine the millions in billing that would generate for Google. Well, now think about it another way. If it's free, it's because it generates much more profit using the information obtained from its massive use, your information. You may argue, Borja, we must head to the mountains, avoiding all devices and social networks. Well, no, but we need to be aware of this to make a more responsible use of technologies that are now inseparable from our species. They are not going to disappear. In fact, they are going to increase more and more, each time more, and we need to know their dangers and how to use them in the best possible way, or at least in the way that impacts our health the least. Well, this is the problem. Knowing it is the first step to change it, but I'll be honest with you. Changing this doesn't just depend on you. Just like optimizing your health doesn't just depend on you. The origins of disease are often environmental and social. The obesogenic environment is a prime example, but our environment not only generates obesity and disease, it also generates distraction. The dangerous thing is that we understand what the problem with obesity is, but we think that being distracted all the time is normal. After all, if everyone does it, it mustn't be an issue. Not only is it a problem, it's the cause of a growing dissatisfaction among many, of the rise of our anxiety, of us literally missing out on life in favor of screen time, of us becoming increasingly unable to solve complex problems on our own, of us being more manipulable, of us being less critical, of us being irritable and developing the habit of hating each other. All of this is not a coincidence, it's the result of the specific use of technology that we are making, and beware that they are making us do. Because no, you are not the only one responsible, the only one to blame, and no, this is not just about your lack of willpower. It's easy to fall into the dynamic of believing oneself to be the only one to blame for distractions. But what we don't see is that there is an army of engineers, entrepreneurs, perfecting increasingly addictive technologies every day that literally keep us glued to the screen. Just as we are not going to beat the obesity epidemic with willpower alone and only by doing restrictive diets, we will not beat the distraction epidemic by just turning off notifications. Today's video presents the problem. For some of you, it may seem overblown. For others who are already suffering the consequences, it may seem appropriate. If those of you who are watching this video feel as I do, that this problem deserves much more attention than we are giving it as a society, as a collective, leave your like and let me know that you want another video with proposed solutions. There are ways to minimize the damage that algorithms do to us and to use them in a healthy and beneficial way. I conclude with a quote from José Ortega y Gasset. The most essential attribute of existence is its impermanence. Life is always urgent. We live here and now without possible delay or transfer. Life is shot at us point blank. Let's not waste our lives seeking empty entertainment. See you soon. Take care and keep empowering.